MALEMA was very clear. He said, I'll join the GNU on one condition. I don't want the DA there. It is stupid to try to fight America. Because people talk about BRICS. China is America's biggest trading partner. India, Donald Trump wasn't even the president yet. And then the Indian prime minister was already there to go and visit Donald Trump. Russia is jumping at a chance to restart the relationship with America. Why is it that we as South Africans
Guys, Gayton Mckenzie is giving us the most raw description of events that transpired during the period of the postponement of Minister Godongwana's 2% VAT increase down all the way to what we have now, which is a 1% VAT increase over the 2-year span, so to speak, and what's really going on. He's actually describing how this could be the ticking time bomb that would actually probably cause the GNU to implode, because he argues that the DA, if you hear, as you heard correctly in the video, that if the DA doesn't agree to the signage of the proposed VAT hike by the ANC Finance Minister, Minister Godongwana, the DA could actually go out or could actually leave the GNU, and we could see a legal basis for the entrance of the EFF into the GNU. Because as he says, MALEMA is really clear that he would not be, or he wouldn't mind to be in the GNU as long as the DA is not in the GNU. Let's quickly listen to him describe really raw, guys, really raw, the events that transpired, and really help us understand the clash that is really going on between the ANC and the DA regarding this whole VAT thing, and why he thinks that the DA should swallow its pride to sign the VAT hike for South Africans, while the DA vows that it would never allow or agree to a signature of a VAT hike for South Africans who have actually already been feeling overtaxed. I'll be back for a few thoughts.
2 weeks ago, the Minister of Finance walked in with a 2% proposal for a VAT hike. Instantly, we speak against it. All ministers. I think there was one minister that said no, the VAT hike should continue. You should continue with putting 2% VAT hike. But everyone, in one voice, told him, no way in hell will you put 2% VAT hike. The Minister of Finance then said, guys, you know we have to present the budget in 10 minutes. We said, well, not today. We have to discuss this. We got to fight about this. We then went from where we were to Parliament. At Parliament, they asked for a postponement. So 2 hours between us deciding we are not going to pass the budget, we are not going to agree on the 2% VAT hike, and walking out of Parliament. We walk into posters, we walk into news media headlines that said the following: the DA is fighting for you against an ANC VAT hike. I called John. I said, John, what the fuck? I said, John, do you know what you guys have just done? You have walked into your oncoming train. No, what you talking about? Right there, I write them a WhatsApp in front of all the ministers. I said, guys, come on, you can't do this because this is supposed to be a GNU victory. And I said to John, the ANC is never going to give us what we want because it will be a DA victory instead of a GNU victory. Yesterday, before the budget, the DA comes and they said they will not vote. They will not vote for any VAT hike. All the people, they don't like the DA, like the South African Communist Party, they were just clapping because they knew what we knew, what was coming. There's a 0.5 VAT hike. Now, the next 2 weeks is the most dangerous 2 weeks in South Africa. Because now the DA went public and they said they're not going to vote for the VAT hike. And if they don't vote for the VAT hike, the GNU, they're out of the GNU. That is the cold, hard facts. Anybody tell you any other thing is a liar. That is what happened, and that's why we are where we are now. What I think is going to happen, or what I think should happen first, I think the DA must just swallow their pride and fix themselves and just come and vote for the budget. Failing to do that, MALEMA was very clear. He said, I'll join the GNU on one condition. I don't want the DA there. And half of the ANC agrees that they don't want the DA there. So I'm saying that the DA's presence in the GNU helps the country a lot. The DA, and I'm literally hoping that common sense shall prevail. The government of national unity will not fall if the DA leaves the GNU. They shall just be replaced. So you can ask me a question afterwards regarding that, but that was the first fact. That's a fact. I'm telling you, I just told you 100% the truth. Anybody tells you any other thing, I will come right back here, Alec, if you have another speaker saying to you another thing, and I will come and show you that they are not being honest. The government of national unity is really the best thing that could have happened to South Africa. I'm telling you now, on the other side of the GNU is Armageddon. Armageddon. We need to just put party politics aside and just look at the government of national unity, because what makes it great, the finance minister would have come and presented a budget. And it would have been, this is the budget, live with it. But because there's a GNU, there's different voices now. No, we don't want 2%. No, we don't want that. And that happens with a lot of things happening. Now, a lot of white people like to ask me a question, the same question. They say to me, why do black people still vote for the ANC while the ANC is so problematic? Well, here's the answer. For the very same reason why you keep on voting for the DA and the DA is so problematic. They love the ANC, you love the DA, and just make peace with that, because it can't be that they are always right and everybody else is always wrong. We have to put the country first. The ANC is the least perfect party you can get. But the fact that they were willing to compromise, you can't have an uncompromising stand when you're in a government of national unity. You can't come and say my way or the highway. It doesn't work like that. It's like being married and you say it's my way or the highway. That marriage will never last. The second thing I want to speak about is America. And then I want to end up with what I think is going to happen. And Alec is my witness. I've never gotten it wrong when it comes to predictions. And Alec is big enough to say, you've given me 9 predictions and they were all spot on. It's not because I'm smart or anything like that, far from it, in fact. It's just because I'm a realist. I don't say what I'm feeling. I'm saying what the reality is on the ground. I want to speak about America. It is stupid to try to fight America, because people talk about BRICS. China is America's biggest trading partner. India, Donald Trump wasn't even the president yet, and then the Indian prime minister was already there to go and visit Donald Trump. Russia is jumping at a chance to restart the relationship with America. Why is it that we are South Africans, and I'm saying that anybody that says America should go to hell should need to get their heads right, because America is our second biggest trading partner. PEPFAR has kept many South Africans alive. And we must be honest about it. We can't afford this narrative that we are anti-America. Once you take money from people, they have a right to have an opinion about some of the things that you are doing. You can't take money from people and don't want them to have an opinion. America has a particular opinion about us. I happen to share some of the opinions they have regarding the friends that we choose as South Africa. But I see there's a lot of South Africans that says nothing about the lie that's being told. But you see, we all got to pay a heavy price if we continue this lie of a genocide. What type of genocide is this? And you should speak up about it because it's not the truth, because it's America today. And once people believe there's a genocide, and that's just bullshit. There's no genocide in South Africa. I know it, and you know it. How can you have coffee in a genocide and sitting here, 90% of you are white, but the word out there is that you are being killed? That's not true, and we should fight that, and we should speak very loudly about that. We only have one South Africa. And if this goes, there's nothing for us. There's no genocide in South Africa. South Africa is not totally innocent, in my opinion, that some of the friends that we keep, I totally disagree with as a country. And I think that they can call me all sorts of names, but I think that we should fix our relationship with America. I think South Africa is the one country in the world that shouldn't even have enemies. We are the children of Mandela. I mean, where would our enemies come from? We don't hurt other countries. I think we are perfectly positioned to be friends with everyone. Then the next election, I want to talk about that. Yesterday I had, last night I had dinner with some very good friends of mine that invited people that I met for the first time. And they asked me a question. They asked me, and I'm going to repeat it here, I said it last time. They asked, do you think EFF will make it? Is EFF dead? I said, no, EFF is not dead. EFF is in a coma. But it's a coma that they will wake up from. Trust me, I don't like those guys. But Malema is smart enough to find his way back. He's been given a setback that the best amongst us would have acted the same way that he's acting. He's lost 4 of his top guys, or 3 of his top guys. He lost Dalim Pofu, he lost Ndlozi, he lost Floyd. That's an earthquake. It's like losing 80% of your board is speaking your language or your management. But I think Malema will bounce back around 2008, 2028. He will bounce back around that time. But for now, the next election, he's still going to be in a coma. That's my opinion.
Yeah, guys. So I don't know. It's a really complex one, really. It's really complex. And I don't know really how else to really analyze this whole clash between the ANC and the DA. But also the positionality of the PA for me is what is most interesting, because as I said, it actually appears that the PA is actually trying to really fight tooth and nail for the GNU to hold. And the PA actually, like in the person of Gayton Mckenzie anyway, is really of the view that, you know, the GNU must hold to keep Jacob Zuma out. That's a sort of like a theoretical kind of like argument for the PA, that this GNU must not fail, because if this GNU fails, the next threat we have is Jacob Zuma, and that the MK party will take over government. And so because of that, we can actually allow, or we should vote for certain kinds of policies that might upset our, you know, maybe individual party, beliefs, so to speak, in order to be able to keep MK out of the GNU. So this is the PA stance. And I really don't know. It's really hard for me to process that kind of thing, because at the end of the day, this could, it almost is feeling as this is the way a Trojan horse, so to speak, can work. because it might be a kind of like an argument that ends up allowing, the compromise of one's own individual beliefs, so to speak. And I really don't know how the other parties are taking it anyway. Mark Bork is of the DA is really certain. As you could hear in the last video, he actually said that Gayton Mckenzie is on the wrong side of this debate. And I really see clearly now, because now I've just really watched Gayton Mckenzie's speech at the Biz News conference. And now I'm able to understand Mike Burke a little bit better in what he argues. Because according to the DA, the South Africans have been taxed to, this is in the words of Ike Komalo now, he says South Africans have been taxed to out of their breath. So the DA thinks that South Africans cannot take any tax anymore. But now it appears that it is clear that the Patriotic Alliance, especially in the person of Gayton Mckenzie, is actually of the opinion that the GNU members should actually allow this proposal for a VAT hike, because this is a way to guarantee the stability of the GNU. And in order to protect the GNU, passing this kind of like VAT hike, which the DA thinks amounts to hurting South Africans more, would then be a basis to keep the MK or possibly even the EFF, because he has actually in this video, as you heard, argued that Mr. Malema is really clear that he's not willing, he doesn't mind to be in the GNU, but as long as the DA is not in that GNU, or maybe the FF Plus and all of that. So in other words, because of this basis now, he argues that the next 2 weeks will be a really dangerous 2 weeks, because I think there's, according to Mike Burke's description, there's going to be a series of, going back and forth on how this whole budget thing should go after 1 month, 2 months, and all of that. So Mckenzie thinks that the next 2 weeks in South Africa will be dangerous, because he thinks that if the DA leaves the GNU will crumble, and then we might be seeing an open door for a much more left-wing kind of orientation that puts or places South Africa firmly in the left, and then really in positionality for a really ideological sort of like battle with the powers like the US and all of that. And Gayton Mckenzie and the PA are really scared of that kind of eventuality or that kind of scenario. And this is actually what's really going on now. And I really don't know, it's hard to process this. But anyway, at the end of the day, if I could give my own final thoughts on how to think about this whole complexity, because it's really complex. First of all, Neil De Beer argues in my last podcast with him that, one of the things the MK party is actually trying to push for is the end of the constitution. And the end of the constitution in this case, I think, would signal the necessity for certain groups in South Africa to want to push for secession. And that would actually be destroying what we understand as South Africa and what we understand as the Union of South Africa. And in this case, probably Orania might actually already be in the future, because them safeguarding their own interest and all of that, it actually almost feels as though they have been preparing for a future that is inevitable in South Africa. And this is what we do not want as Africans. We cannot lose South Africa at this time, all right? We adore South Africa. We respect South Africa and its diversity. We really understand and see the possibilities that a diverse South Africa can actually, impinge on the economy of the continent. But to lose South Africa because of all of these challenges, constitutional discrepancies, racial discrepancies, and all these tensions, man, I really wish that we can find a meeting point to still keep this whole thing functioning, all right? And this is where the necessity of a leader in the likes of another kind of like Mandela, maybe not the colorism, the rainbow, so to speak, but maybe under another metaphor. But I think this is the way South Africa would really need to be governed, in a way that really tries to strive for so to speak, cohesion, but also economic equality, because the economics is actually a big problem in this whole debate. I remember during the independence of Ghana, the first president of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah, really powerful voice at the time in the 1960s, argued that the independence of Ghana is useless except it is economically linked to, this independence is linked to an economic independence. In other words, Kwame Nkrumah, at first, he actually argued that, there was a mantra he used to push then. He would say, seek ye first the political kingdom, and every other thing would be added to you. This was Kwame Nkrumah. Then later along the line in his governance, he understood the role of the economic. And then he started saying that, the political independence of Ghana is useless unless it is linked to an economic independence as well. So we see that the economic aspect of this whole thing with social cohesion is key. There's no way we can push for a much more united South Africa when we have a very high level of inequalities, you see. So this is the way I think that whoever will be the new leader to really pursue a sort of united South Africa or social cohesion would have to really be astute economically, really sharp in terms of economic models and economic understandings to be able to help place policies that could actually help bridge these inequalities. I think that South Africans really are not asking for much, just like in Nigeria as well. Nigerians are not asking for much. Nigerians just really want, they can make things happen on their own. They just need basic electricity, basic water, a functioning system that helps them thrive. And I think this is what South Africans also are asking for. But there needs to be a leader that kind of like unites all the grids, because South Africa is a much more unique case. It's the first case, or maybe the only case in South Africa where we see a multiracial, multi-ethnic, multicultural factor that actually frames the kind of democracy that builds out of South Africa. I think that's what makes South Africa a really complex case in Africa. But anyway, I don't know. I'll be stopping here. I don't want this video to be too long. What do you think about Gayton Mckenzie's description of the clash between the ANC and the DA, and why and how he believes that the DA should try to swallow its pride and agree to a VAT increase so that it can still be a member of the GNU in order to keep MK Party or the EFF out of the GNU? Share your thoughts, guys, in the comments.